I think we can start here because it's time and it's already 2 minutes plus, and I'm really sure that some people will join us during our workshop. And today I will be moderator. My name is Christina, and I'm a member of Akure Russia and also in Akure Globe. And our speaker is Iyanu today. Iyanu is from Nigeria, but I will pass the word to you a little bit later. As here we have an Ara Grigorian, who is the chairman of Akure Russia, and he wants to tell personally some words today. So Ara, please, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Christina. Hello, guys. How are you? I believe you'll enjoy this process. And Iyanu, first of all, I want to say thank you because it's a great honor for us to have such speaker like you. We are very glad today that today you have the opportunity to share your knowledge about project management with us. And I'm sure this will be a very useful time for us. I believe that. And I wish you good luck. And for our listeners to enjoy this process, because I believe it will be great time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, and not to lose our time, Iyanu, the stage is yours, and please start. I will mute myself and be here.
Okay, so can I share my screen? Am I good?
Yeah, I think you can. Zhenya, can you allow to share the screen?
Yeah, 1 second, yeah.
So can you see my screen now? Good.
Yeah.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening. You guys are in the evening currently. So today we would actually be checking a very simple topic. It's starting in project management. And one thing I actually want everyone on the call to bear in mind or keep in mind is that the success of every project actually begins with every one of us in this call. So keep that at the back of your mind. If you are hoping to be a project manager or looking to be project manager in months to come, years to come, have it so tight in your mind that the success of that project that you'll be embarking on actually begins with you. Nobody else begins with you. All right, so starting in project management. And today's agenda will be considering about me, we'll talk a bit about me. We'll look into what project is, what project management is, and who is the project manager. We're going to be checking the 5 PM process group, that's 5 project management process group. Also consider the PM 10 knowledge area, and we'll be defining project success criteria. Also, we'll check the old and new way of approaching a project, and then we'll go into a practical workshop just to show us how some of these things are in a real life scenario. All right, and after the workshop, we'll come back to come and talk a bit about how to deal with failure, and then we'll have the closing period of the program. All right, so about me. So my name is Iyanu Olusegun, and I am the JPM Sponsorship and Partnership for IPMA Nigeria. I hold a bachelor's degree in project management technology from Federal University of Technology, Akure. I'm a PMI global member, and like Tina said, I'm from Nigeria. So I would like to meet you guys. If you don't mind, just in the chat box. So introduce yourself, just your name, your specialization, your area of expertise, and drop that in the chat box while we move on. So I hope I would see some messages in the chat box. The area of specialization, your name, or where are you from? All right, so moving on. Introduction to project management. All right, so one thing with my experience and talking to people, one thing I've realized, when you ask people, is this a project? They either say no or yes based on the kind of definition that they know about the project or what a project is. So, but over time, most people think until the project is on a large scale, they don't want to call it a project. They want to say a kind of construction work, the huge project, a large scale project before they would accept that it's a project. But as small as a wedding is, now I'm using wedding as an example. As small as a wedding is, it looks like it's not a project. But by the time we consider the in and out of the wedding, then we need to know that, oh, truly, the wedding is actually a project. So, for example, because the wedding has a specific goal, the goal is to bring the husband and the wife together and then call it a home, right? So, because they want to celebrate their wedding or the marriage, the resources will be involved. They will be spending money. There will be an allocated time to eat, and the wedding is actually for a specific day. It's not like they're going to be doing wedding every day of their life. So they start planning the wedding, and at a particular point in time, they will deliver the husband and the wife, and then we can now say, oh, they are good to start a family on their own. So, and that was why in PMBOK 7th edition or 6th edition, the project is like a temporary endeavor that you embark. So once it's temporary, once it's going to produce a unique result, a unique service, a unique product, we can see that's a project. So who then is a project manager? Because I know every one of us wants to be called the project manager, or we are longing to be that. So when the husband and the wife, I'll use my wedding example, I'm going to be using that frequently. So let's say I am the husband, and then I called my wife and told my wife, oh, let's get married. And she said, oh, but we don't know how to plan a wedding. So what do? Let's invite an event manager to help us plan the wedding. Now, when they invite that event manager to come and help them plan the wedding, the event manager becomes the project manager for that project. Why? Because he will be the one planning the schedule of the wedding, planning the resources, how they'll be used, planning who to come around and all those things. So he becomes the project manager. Why? Because he's the person assigned to oversee every activity that will be happening in that wedding. So, and in the process of him overseeing those activities, the end goal is actually to produce, to ensure that the wedding, which is the final date, marriage date, is actually a success. So that is project management. But when we now talk about project management, we're going to be discussing about the project manager himself applying all the skills he has gathered over the years, all the knowledge he has gathered over the years, the tools he has gathered, how to plan a wedding. So when he uses those tools, those knowledge, those skills, and he applies it to a real life scenario, and that means what he is doing at that moment is actually managing the wedding project. So that is project management. So when we talk about project, don't think too big. Anybody could be a project manager. You don't really have to be in construction. You don't have to be in IT. In your area of specialization, if you take up the role, or if you are assigned the role of leading a team, a project team towards achieving a goal, then that makes you a project manager. Just that people now see if you're not satisfied, they call you accidental project manager. Why? Because you just find yourself in that position, but you are not satisfied yet. All right. So, sorry. And then one thing that happens in the process of managing the project is there are steps that you can, or let me say processes that you can apply that makes you achieve what you want to achieve. So in PMBOK, we talk about the process group. Now, the process group, to me, I view it as something that this is what the project manager needs to do. So the project manager needs to initiate the project. He needs to plan the project. He needs to execute the project. He needs to monitor and control the project. At the same time, he is going to need to close the project. So when we talk about initiating process group, we're talking about everything, every processes that he will have to do to initiate the wedding, or anything that he would have to do as a project manager that is going to initiate that project. So things, for example, as a project manager, let's say when the husband and wife invite him over, the next thing he would have to do is would ask them, oh, what do you plan to achieve? That becomes the goal. How do you want to achieve it? That becomes the objective. What are the possible risks? What are the possible obstacles that we could meet in our goal of achieving the project? Who are the stakeholders? Who are those that will be invited for the program? Who are those that will be coming for the project, both internally, externally? Now, when it follow those processes to gather those things together from the husband and the wife, from his own experience and knowledge, that means he's actually starting the project. So that becomes the initiating process group. Why? Because everything that he needs to initiate the project must be in that initiating group. So the result that we produce from the initiating group is what we call the project charter from PMBOK, or from Project Management Knowledge Worldwide. So that is the project charter. And that result that comes from the initiating group, which is the project charter, is a document that is given to the project manager to go ahead with the project. That is, you can now start the project. So when it takes that project charter and it takes it to the process group, it becomes an input to the process group, so to the planning process group. Now, what happened in the planning process group is everything stated, or almost everything stated in the project charter will be planned for. For example, there is a scope stated there. So we start planning how to ensure that our scope is achieved, how to ensure that our scope is not going outside the scope, how to ensure that we are within the scope. What if we move away from the scope? How do we control it? Now, we plan those things, and all the plans will be packed under planning process group. So when we now talk about the cost, we'll plan for the cost also, we'll plan for the resources, the stakeholders will plan for it. Don't forget those things that have already been stated in the project charter. So we'll make a full detailed plan of everything, the cost, the human resource, the schedule, the scope, the risk. When we make a plan of all those things, then we'll now come out with a document that is called the project management plan document. So when we have that project management plan document, that is what we will use in executing the project. We don't use the project charter to execute the project, because the project charter doesn't have a full detailed plan of how to achieve the goal. What really have the full detailed plan is actually the project management plan. So that is what we are going to use to execute the project. Now, what we want to do in executing process group is each of those plans, we will be executing it one after the other. We execute the scope, we would ensure that the scope is within project, we would execute, not going outside the cost that we plan, we would execute the stakeholder, how we are managing our stakeholder, how we are ensuring that, the stakeholders are satisfied and they are not discouraged about the result. So that is what we'll be doing in the executing process group. But when we come to the monitoring and control, before we go to the closing, I do tell people, as we can see in the diagram, there is no arrow pointing that initiation goes to planning, then planning goes to, there is no arrow pointing. Everything is just like in a circle. And that is because all this process group interact with one another. So when we get to monitoring and control, you just have to know that in the initiation phase, you will be monitoring, you will be controlling. In the planning phase, you'll be monitoring, you'll be controlling. In the executing phase, you are monitoring, you're controlling. So what happened in monitoring and control process group is, let's say the project is actually going outside the scope. Before the project started going outside the scope, that means we were actually monitoring, is the process aligning with the scope. So in the process of monitoring, when we see deviation away from the project scope, then we start doing what? We start controlling it back to ensure that it fits into the project scope and not outside the scope. So that is what is done in monitoring and controlling. And then what the project manager is going to do after that, close it. So closing the project is when you gather all your documents, everything you use, and then you present it to the stakeholders involved or the project owner that, oh, this is everything. You collect the client acceptance. Oh, are the client, which is your project owner now, is the client happy with the project? Get a feedback, and then you start asking yourself questions. What can I improve on next time? What can I do better next time? That is what happened in the closest group. So, but to be able to, okay, before that, one thing I realized is people tend to mix the process group with the phase of a project. That is, when you ask them that, is the phase of a project the same as the process group? Some people tend to mix it up in explanation. But then what happened in project phase is that the project actually have phases to achieve each task or each activities that it is involved. So in each phase, we are going to carry out a process group in each phase. That is, if there is a phase one of a project, we would carry out all the process group in that phase one. So let's say the phase one of a project. I actually want to use an example of how wedding is done in Nigeria here. So the process of a wedding in Nigeria here is you do the introduction first. Okay, so after doing the introduction first, you guys are gonna do the court wedding. After doing the court wedding, you go ahead to go and do traditional wedding, and after doing traditional wedding, you go ahead to go and do the church wedding. But I know outside Nigeria, it's just like the introduction. After doing the introduction, you go ahead to church wedding, or probably maybe you guys have your own culture, and that is one thing that affects how project is planned for. Culture also affects. That is, the culture of the organization, the culture of that environment affects how you would approach a project. So when we talk about Nigerian zones, so let me use Nigeria. The tradition wedding is a phase. The court wedding is a phase. The church wedding becomes a phase. Now, in each phase, we would initiate them, we would plan for it, we are going to execute it. Why? Because we are going to organize that tradition wedding. We will monitor everything happening in that wedding, we would control it, and then we'll close it before moving again to what? The church wedding. So it's a phase, but everything is just a wedding project. Everything is a marriage project. So that the phase is not the same with the process group. The phase is like a breakdown of how the project would be achieved, like a milestone. So we want to achieve this, we achieve this. A milestone set for, let's say, a period of time just to achieve. But in each milestone, what we are doing is we are actually initiating, we are planning, we are monitoring, we are executing, we are closing. Okay, good. So after gathering this ideal of, oh, this is what I need to do, the question will now be, what do I need to know to be able to do what I need to do? Right? Okay, I know I need to build a fan, but what are the required knowledge for me to build a fan? I can't just say, oh, I need, okay, probably, for example, there is heat in this place. I think I was telling Dima said it's no wheel over there. So here it's actually hot, so I'll be using the hot zone thing. So let's say I'm actually hot in my room, and then I feel, oh, I need to buy a fan. The question would be, what do I need to know in order to buy a fan? So I need to know that, oh, fan is, for me to get a fan, I need the money, I need cost. For me to get a fan, I need probably transportation fee to go to the market. Now, that is the knowledge that I know. Okay, so what if I buy the fan and I don't know how to switch it on? That means I need to get another set of knowledge, how to switch on the fan, how to do this. And that is what is going to take us to the next slide. So, which is insight into the knowledge areas. Now, when there are actually 10 insights, integration, scope, we'll list them. Now, when we talk about integration management, this, don't forget, this is just an introduction. We can't actually go deep into all those things. So when we talk about integration management, is when you carry out all the processes, you combine all the processes involved in a project, put them together, and you start monitoring, checking them, just for them to be achieved. Everything done together becomes integration management. That is the scope, the cost, the quality, the time, the resources, schedule. When you put all those processes together involved in achieving those things, that becomes the integration. Integration means we are bringing everything together. So, but when we talk about scope management, it's sorry, but I think I love the wedding example. So just for us to be able to be carried along. So when we talk about the scope project management, so in our wedding example, the scope would be something like let me see. The scope would be something like what is the number of guests we are expecting, right? So that becomes the scope. Now, what we do in the scope management is how do we get this number of guests? How do we ensure that the guest, which is going to be, let's say, 40 in number, doesn't go beyond that? How do we ensure that the people that will be coming will not be 60? Because by the time people attend the wedding, that means we will be short of food. The resource will not be enough. That means probably the time we will use to check them in would also increase. So instead of spending like an hour to check them in, that means we'll be spending 1 hour, 30 minutes plus, or 2 hours to check them in. So what we are doing in the scope management is actually ensuring that we are planning everything that we ensure that we are not going outside our scope. In the wedding, I said the scope is something like the number of guests, the type of decoration that we want to use. Now, for the wedding, the number of food that will be produced by the caterer. Now, all those things becomes the scope, becomes the boundary of that project. So what we are trying to do is we don't want to go outside the boundary of that project. We are trying to ensure that by the time we take our compass, the pencil to draw the circle is not a rough pencil. So what we are doing is we are actually ensuring that the compass is well tightened. That is, we can't go beyond the circle of that project. So are there situations where the scope might need to change? Yes. And those are the time when you start talking about controlling the scope and ensuring that, it's another process where you have to talk to the stakeholder. You can't just say, the scope has changed, let us execute everything, just go along with it. No, because by the time you finish the project as a project manager, you would realize that you might not have even satisfied the stakeholder, the client might have been affected. So that is about scope management. When we talk about time management, there is a schedule for everything. For example, for today's program now, we have 1 hour. That is what is scheduled. So I know when Christina wanted to start, she said, we are 2 minutes into the program. So let's quickly do what we want to do. Now, what Christina is trying to do is to ensure that we don't go beyond the schedule of this program. So I know something like around 4:50 something, if Dima is very active, Dima would have entered my DM to say, you have 5 minutes left. Now, what Dima is trying to do is to ensure that I don't go beyond the schedule of this project. So the planning, the duration of every activity needs to be put in place. So for example, we would say, when do we need to send out the invitation for the wedding? When do we need to book for vendors? When do we need to tell the caterer that we need you to come as early as 10 a.m.? Well, if the wedding is starting by 10 and the caterer brings the food around 6 p.m., people are discouraged already. So if you are the one planning for the wedding, that means you would have to put in mind that, from this time to this time, the caterer needs to start serving. So from this time to this time, they would have been done with serving, let's say from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. They would have been done serving. So the next thing to do will be probably bring in the husband and the wife and let them have what they want to do, the talking and everything. So every activities have a time assigned to them. And that is about time management. And also, don't forget, resources also have time assigned to them. So when we talk about the next one, which is cost management, everything is money. So we all know if you really want to embark on a project, one way or the other, you would spend money, no matter how small it is, even if it's transport fare, even if it's a miscellaneous fee, still part of the money now, you need to plan. So what happened in the cost management is there is a budget that is given to us. So don't forget, in the starting of my example on the wedding project, husband actually called the project manager, and then he said, we want to have a wedding, but we have just 200,000 naira or $200,000. So that becomes the budget of the project. And that is what the project manager needs to plan with. So he won't say, the husband is giving me 200,000 naira. I want to go and rent a hall of 150,000 naira. There would not be money to even buy the food. There will not be money to get the flowers, the decoration. So what a project manager needs to know is, how do I plan for the cost of this project? Which tools do I need to gather in order to plan for the cost of this project effectively? Which knowledge do I need to gather to plan for cost? All right. And then when we talk about, don't forget, in the cost now, we'll be talking about the cost of renting a hall, the cost of buying a car, cost of buying the decoration thing, or the cost of bringing an organization that is into decorating or into wedding decorations. Now that is about cost management. When we now talk about quality management, in quality management, what we are trying to do is to ensure that we achieve the quality of that project. So let's say, for example, okay, so let's say, for example, the goal of the husband is to use a wedding hall that is, let's say, superb, one that the lighting inside is wonderful, the floor is well tiled, the chairs are neat. Now, what the project manager is going to ensure that is achieving with quality management is to ensure that when the husband enters into that hall, he doesn't feel like, why did you rent this hall? He doesn't feel like, wow. So what quality does to clients most times, it wow them. It makes them feel like, seriously, my money achieved this, or the project manager achieved this for me. So quality is something that you just have to put in your mind. Why? Because if what you achieve at the end of the day becomes something that the client is not happy with, then your quality will be questioned. So if, let's say, for someone who is in construction sector, what he will be working on is, I want to ensure that the quality of the blocks that we used is they are of good standard. The quality of the cement used are of good standard. The quality of, now he plans those things under the quality management. The same thing, an IT person, if is an IT project manager, what he'll be working towards is, the quality of the interface of my design or interface of my application needs to be okay. It needs to be appealing. So all those things are what you do under quality management. All right. So we have resource management. Resource management means there are resources involved in every project, just like I said. And what we are trying to do is to ensure that every resource, no resource is overloaded. So no resource is underused or overused. So we plan those things in the resource management. Who is assigned to who? Who should how many people should be assigned to block laying? How many people should be assigned to what's it called now? How many people should be assigned to the roofing of the house? How many people should be assigned? And that is what we do in the resource management. Don't forget, resource management would also involve all these normal resources when we talk about the blocks, the roofing sheets, the glasses. Now, you plan those things under the resource management. We have the communication management. How do you want communication to be to and fro within everybody involved in the project? Do you want to make use of SMS to send a message, or do you want to talk about a WhatsApp message? Okay, so let me share my experience. For example, I think when Dima first came to my DM, me and Dima were using email to chat. So we were sending the messages through Gmail, and then I think Dima said, "Oh, do I have a Telegram number?" And I asked, "Oh, yes." Why? Because that is much more convenient for Dima. So I need to plan those things, and that is one thing that Dima already planned. Fine. I can't be reaching out to Iyanu every time on email or Gmail. So the best way to reach out to him that we could flow easily and communicate easily would be what? A Telegram channel. So that becomes the communicate what we are doing under communication management. And then we talk about risk. every project has a risk involved. We can't just do without putting risk in mind. So what will be the risk of a wedding? What if people doesn't come? What if we plan 300 foods? What if only 100 people comes? That becomes a risk. Okay, what if rain falls that day? What do we do? What if the weather is not conducive for people? What if they eat too much? Now, all those things are things that the project manager needs to plan. So, for example, I think the last time I was opportune to talk in IPMA program, I had a network issue, I had a system issue. Now, assuming what I did ahead of time was to say, okay, Iyanu, what are the risks that will be involved in you presenting at IPMA YC workshop? I would ask myself, what if my data shut down? What if my system suddenly stop working? So I have a backup. That means I would definitely have to have a backup system. I would definitely have to have either a MiFi with me or another phone to use as an hotspot. I already planned for those things. That is what you are doing under risk management. So, and then we go to procurement. Procurement is we need to buy. Procurement means buying, involve purchasing. So what are the things that we need to purchase for every project that we're embarking on? We need to plan them. We can't just go to the market and say, we want to do a wedding or we want to build a house. What do we buy? And then not buy anything that we like. No, there are things that you need to buy. There are things that you need not to buy. And the money attached to them, you can't spend beyond that. So you need to plan very well. All right, so stakeholders are people that could be affected by the project or people that could affect the project. They could dictate let me say, they are really like the boss involved in the project. So I was one time talking to my boss, and then he asked me a very simple question. He says, out of all these 10 knowledge area, which is the most difficult? And I had to sit down and I said, okay, I think he was driving, so I had time to think through. And then I told him, I'll go for the stakeholder management. He said, why? I said, humans are the most difficult thing to manage. Why? Because everybody has their own opinion, everybody has their own mindset, everybody wants to feel valued, everybody wants to feel accepted. All those things are things that they all brings to the table. For example, the owner of a house project might say, I want the roof to be flat. And then let's say the wife of that person says, no. I want the roof to be like this. So the way you manage them, the way you talk to them, and what you do under stakeholder management. You can't be angry at them. You can't fight them. So there is a way you need to manage them. And I think there was a time I read a book about power and politics in project management. I can't remember the title, the writer of the book. But what he did in that book was to ensure that there is a way you manage power that even stakeholders that look above you, there is a way you will talk to them with influence. There is a way you will talk to them and interact. Right. So that is the last knowledge area. And by the time you gather all this knowledge, these are the knowledge that you now start applying in the process group. So in the initiation group, we already know that communication will be involved. In the initiation group, stakeholder management will be involved. In the initiation group, time management will be involved. So you start planning all those things one by one into the process groups. And everything is towards achieving the success of the project. All right. So how then do we now define if the project we just embark on is success or not? How do we know we achieve the project goal and the project objective? The first one I will talk about scope. So I do tell people in my own workplace that if you achieve one of these success criteria and not everything, I personally don't want to call it a success. Why? Because one way or the other, they all interact. All these criteria have a common line. So the scope is let's say the main goal that we want to achieve, the utmost goal that we want to achieve. So did we achieve that goal? One. Or let me say, did we achieve what we state from the very beginning that we want to get as a result? That is the first question. And then the schedule will be, did we meet up with the time? Okay. A project that was supposed to be launched, let's say January, what if we delayed and started launching the project August? The question would be, by the time that project gets to the market, does the market still want that same project? So, for example, I think I was reading about what's his name? Henry Ford 1, Henry Ford 2, sometimes back. And then what the son of Henry Ford 1 did was a total error. He actually launched the project, like he was planning, and then he launched the project very late. So the time he was supposed to meet up with, which is the time that the clients or the external stakeholders were expecting, he failed to meet up with that time. So he launched it after a whole year of planning, and that affects the results of the organization. That is one thing that almost crashed the entire Henry Ford company. So, and then when Henry Ford came in, he had to plan very well. He had to ensure that the people he's bringing on board are the knowledgeable set of people who could analyze the market and say, the market wants this thing in 2 days. So we have to produce it in 2 days. Did we meet up with the 2 days? If we meet up with the 2 days, meet up with the scope, then we can say, we are working towards success. Now, the third one is the budget. Hope we didn't overspend. Now, I do tell people in this success criteria, it doesn't really have to be that in the schedule, you said you're going to submit the project on 2nd of January, that you must submit it on 2nd of January. No, always have a plus and minus in mind. So the question will be, if I want to communicate my success criteria to my client, I tell him, for the schedule or for the deadline of this project, it's going to be something like plus and minus 10 days of, let's say, January 5th. So he would know that I either submit the project before 10 days before January 5th, or I submit the project 15 days after January 5th. So I'm actually trying to stay in the confinement of being realistic. I don't tend to say, what if rain fall? That means I won't be able to meet up with that deadline. So is that I'm actually compressing or bringing some projects which would, in the end of the time, it ends up affecting some other. So always in your mind, when you want to talk about your success criteria, always add a plus and a minus things. Not a too much plus and minus. You are not saying add plus a whole year or minus a whole year. No. So the same thing goes for the budget. What is the budget? Plus and minus budget of what? Let's say 25,000 plus and minus of 5,000. So we know even if you are going towards over budgeting, is an addition of 5,000 naira. We won't go beyond that. The very moment we start going beyond that, that means we are no longer achieving success. Good. So the next one is quality. Did we achieve the quality? Did we achieve the quality of the project? Did we meet up with the inherent thing that project is meant to have, the thing that the project is composed of, a deal of quality. So if we achieve that, if we achieve the schedule, if we achieve the scope, if the budget, then we know that, fine, we are working towards success. And then the last one is the second to the last, team satisfaction. Are the team satisfied? Then we talk about what? Customer satisfaction. Are the customers satisfied? Now the team involved. Question Christina would like to ask is, Dima, are you satisfied with today's project? What we are doing currently is a project. So Dima, how was today's project? Are you satisfied? Dima says, I'm satisfied. Iyanu did well, he didn't do well, blah, blah, blah. They begin to analyze. So if Dima says, I'm satisfied, Christina, automatically, we have this kind of happy mode in her. Why? Because you feel like, really, my team member is what? Satisfied. That means the satisfaction of that team member is what's going to carry into the next project. But if the team members are not satisfied, ends up affecting their mood. And then that means we now start working on their emotions management. Okay, we will do better next time. But when the team is satisfied, they will know that the project is what success. And also the customers. For example, the customers on this stage, which would be, let's say, the students, the professionals, Anybody? Are they satisfied with what we delivered as a project? So that brings us to the end of the success criteria of our measures. Okay, good. So when we talk about the old and new way of doing things, talk about waterfall methodology and agile methodology, there are other methodologies. So one thing I like to say is this: because waterfall is old, doesn't mean stop using it. And because agile is new, doesn't mean it's the perfect one. No, I do tell people which other, whatever methodology you will be using in your organization, there is a need for you to understand the culture of your organization, which one best suits and which one best suits the project you are embarking on. We can, for example, we can't just say, because agile methodology came in place, all the projects we'll be embarking on in this organization will be by agile methodology. That will be wrong, because some project still requires you to follow this waterfall methodology to an extent. Now, what I advise most times is pick which one is best suited out of the two. Will waterfall suit, will agile suit? So, and there are times where the two comes hand in hand. So, for example, let's say in the wedding project, a waterfall methodology could be, we plan everything, we plan all the activities, and then we start applying them one after the other. So one must be done before we go to the next one. If one is not done, we can't go to the next activity. So we must finish court wedding before doing a church wedding, and then we must finish tradition wedding before doing the court wedding. So those things becomes how we move step by step. The linear motion, that is waterfall. When we talk about agile methodology is when you put things in sprint. So you release a small part of the project and then you test it in the market. And then when people give their feedback on it, you take that feedback and then you use it to plan again, to design again, make the project again, and then give it to the customer. So it's like just the way it is in circle form in agile. So it is sprint. We design, we discover, we design, we develop, test. And when we test, we get a feedback. The feedback is what we're going to take into the next phase. So the next phase starts again with, we just finished discovering. What did we discover? We discovered this. Then we'll design that thing again. Then we'll develop. Then we'll test. So, for example, I tell people almost all the software development companies follows the agile methodology. Why? Because almost every 2 weeks or 3 weeks or months, they tend to release updates. Now, what they are doing is they are getting feedback from us. WhatsApp will release another update very soon. ChatGPT, it was once ChatGPT 3. Sorry. It was once ChatGPT 3, and then now they've upgraded it to ChatGPT 4. So the upgrade are things that they're actually doing by following agile methodology, the way of things going this way. So we get the result, and then we take it back into our home project. So, so Dima, this is what's the time currently? 4:46. So can we just do a workshop just to carry out?
It depends. How long is going to be the workshop, please?
Okay, so let's just do it this way. Can we spend, depends. So let's just say 15 minutes. Yeah, 15
how many?
minutes.
15?
Yeah, things. I need to stay within the time. So there are things that will cost. It's not going to be a full project.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to talk about something.
Okay.
All right. So the workshop will actually be taking place in Miro, right? I don't know who's dropping the Miro.
Who is what? Sorry.
There should be a Miro link. So
you're rolling.
Miro, like there's a Miro link Dima sent to me.
Miro. Okay. Yeah.
Good. So,
you can share the Miro in the screen, I think. Like
I will
just
share it in
share.
screen.
Huh?
You want me to share it in screen, right?
Yes, I think it would
Yes,
be
I'm
better,
coming.
like everybody can see.
Okay. I actually thought you're going to drop it like a link in the group.
Okay.
I'm coming. Off what? All right. Okay, so can you see the Miro screen now?
Now I see only workshop, like the screen from presentation.
Okay, I'm coming.
Oh yeah,
Can you
now
see
I
now?
can see. Yeah.
Okay, good. In case anybody wants to find, I think I just dropped the link.
Ah yeah.
Good. All right, so I just want to use this to explain something. So the project we're actually working on is let's say, campus-wide charity fundraising or fundraiser. So it's a project that has to do with raising fund for charity or raising fund for charity. So the first thing that comes in every project is actually a project brief. So like this is where the project brief is. Can you see the cost of? So I'm going to zoom in. So this is the project brief, and then it says, welcome to Introduction to Project Management Workshop. Now the case study list, let's imagine everybody on this call or those watching are a team of students, and then we are tasked to organize a campus-wide charity fundraiser. So, and then a project manager is assigned. So let's say as a team lead, it becomes his own responsibility to ensure that the fundraiser is a success. So to do this, you will need to effectively manage the various tasks and various resources that will be involved. So don't forget, when we started the other time, we talked about the initiation phase, right? So in the initiation phase, we talked about producing a project charter. In the project charter, how to come up with the project charter becomes, what do you think the goal for this project would be? So it's a question actually here. What do you think the goal for the project would be? So assuming this is a live workshop where everybody comes and contributes. So what Miro is used for is actually for collaboration. Everybody in the team, everybody involved in the project comes on Miro, and then everybody drops their own, oh, I think the goal of this project is this. I think the goal of this project is this. So when they drop it, they would share knowledge and pick the best one that best suits the project. So for example, I'm coming, I really nice. Okay. So, okay, I'm coming. Just want to ensure that. All right. So, for example, someone might say, "Oh, I think the goal of the project is coming my role." Okay. So someone might drop this. So that is how they keep on using the Miro to interact. Don't forget, Miro is just collaborating to. So someone might say the purpose of this project is to raise funds for a local charity that provides education and basic necessities to underprivileged children in the community. The project aims to engage the student community and raise awareness about the cost through the series of events, including charity work, big sale, and talent show. Now, one thing that happened about setting project goal is it has to be smart. So, for example, if someone drops this, we would analyze: is this goal, is this specific enough? Is it measurable? Can we measure the success of this project? Can we is it realistic? Is it achievable? Is it timely? So to make it timely, we cannot say in the next, something like talent show within the next 4 weeks. So adding these 4 weeks to it already shows that, oh, then it's timely. That means we are submitting this project in 4 weeks. We want to achieve all these projects in 4 weeks. Now, is it achievable? Yes. Why? Because that means if we are able to raise this amount of fund, so let's add a money to it. Was any money stated? No. So in our own team, we can say raise fund of, let's say, 50,000, let's say 500,000 naira. 500,000 naira, that would be something like $200 thereabouts. So adding this 500, that means what? It becomes our measuring criteria, our success. So once we achieve 500,000, once we're able to raise 500,000, then we'll know that, okay, that means we've actually what? Achieved this. That means the project is achievable. So is this smart enough? Yes, of course. I think reading it, we know it's smart enough. So what we do in project goal is we actually think about smart. Is it smart? Is it specific? Sorry. Is it measurable? Is it achievable? And then is it realistic? And then is it timely? So these are the things we use in answering the question to know if this goal actually meet up with these things. So if the goal meet up with this, then we can now move on to what? Saying, okay, fine. What is the objectives of this project, right? So let me return to something like, let me see. Okay, so okay, I mean, so, so we can now bring it to this place and then would say, okay, fine. These are the objective of the goal of the project. So the first objective is to raise 200,000, approximately $500 in 4 weeks. So that is one objective. Second objective will be to engage 100 students in the project and raise awareness about the cost. Third objective will be to organize a charity work. Now, these objectives are towards achieving this goal. That means if we are able to achieve all these objectives, we are going to meet up with this goal. Don't forget, what we are trying to form is a project charter, right? So again, we move again, and then we will define the stakeholders for this project. So I don't know, anybody want to drop for this kind of project, who will be the stakeholders? I think if you are going to be using a university setting, that means the university authority, right? Authority, the charity organization, sorry, the these underprivileged, the charity organization, sorry, the charity organization, and then we will list every stakeholders that will be involved in this project. Now, we go again and then we'll start answering, okay, what are the success criteria? How do we want to measure our success, right? So I think I also kept one here. Oh, I even have it. Good. So let's just pick this and then we'll drop it there. Okay, so these are the stakeholders that I personally listed. So this is student-led organization initiating the program, the university administration and staff, the local charity receiving the fund, the student community that are participating in the event, so the sponsors and the donors, the volunteers, all these people becomes the stakeholders. And then we talk about roles and responsibility. Now, in this kind of project, we know that there will be a project manager, there will be an event coordinator. We know that there will be a security agent, because now it's involving money just to ensure that everybody is safe. So a security coordinator, a graphic designer, we help us design the flyers and all those kind of things. Now, what we are doing is we are simply planning the responsibility. We will plan the responsibility of these people. But first is to identify the roles that we need. We need to identify the roles that we need. The roles are, these are the roles, the project manager, and then we will define their responsibilities. So the next one is the risks that will be involved. So for this kind of project, the risks that will be involved, let me show us risks. Okay, the whole lot, but then so good. So for this kind of project, we would have a weather risk. Why? Because we are actually organizing the program outside, and then we start asking, what if people doesn't participate? What if people lack funds to give to us? What if the equipment, probably we want to sing song just to attract people? What if the equipment fail all of a sudden? What if we have technical issues? What if volunteers doesn't show up? Why? Because it's a program that involves volunteering, volunteers coming to come and help us to raise funds for a charity organization. What if volunteers doesn't show up? What if the event wasn't well promoted? What if there was a security threat? What if logistic issues happen? Like probably we were supposed to transport from one place to another, and then there was no well, for example, in Nigeria where we do have scarcity. Now all those things becomes the risk, and then we will need to plan it. So, and then we move again to the kind of events that we want to organize. So for this kind of event, I think it was well stated here. Okay, good. So we would have a charity work event. This is, we would have a charity work event, and then we would have a big sale event, and then we will have talent show event. Now, when we do all those things, when we have all those things in place, this part becomes the project charter. When we answered all those questions, just by answering those questions, then we now have a project charter. Now, in the real sense, the project manager alone could do this. At the same time, the project charter could have been done for him, and then they just give it to him to go over the project. So that becomes the project charter. And don't forget that after producing this project charter, the next thing we'll start doing is we now start planning for each of them. So the first thing here was actually the goal, or let's say the scope. So we're going to draw another text box. Let me say a sticky note. Sorry. This is a sticky note this time around. So in the sticky note, what we're going to do is something like scope, and then scope management. So we're going to plan for how to manage this scope. Now, when we plan for how to manage this scope, we are also going to plan for what else? The time. We plan for the time. We're going to plan for the time.
Budget, quality.
Okay, so we plan for the time, and then all those things. Now, how we are planning for this time is actually based on one, how the responsibility of those people, also the event. So we are going to use the event. How do we want the event to go? The event to be what we use to plan for those time. So let's say we have 3 events, and then we have 4 weeks. That means for each week, we can actually have 1 event. Each week for 1 event. And then that is how we're going to plan for the time. And then how we'll plan for the resources. We're going to know that, okay, fine. Plan for resources. We have this set of human role, and each of them will be needing something to fulfill their role. So what are the resources that we'll be needing? So let's say, for example, the resources that we'll be needing. So for this kind of project, I think what I would like is we're going to need a venue, a venue. We're going to need a speaker just to make some announcements. Speaker, we're going to need flyers. We're going to need quite a whole lot of things for just this single project. And then we're going to need tables, chairs, set up how we want to collect those things. And then we're going to need, let's say, bank account where people send money and those kind of things. Now, all these things becomes our resources. And then the question will be, how do we want to manage them? So each of them will plan a whole lot. Sorry. Each of them we're going to plan their projects. And then after planning the projects, we can now say, oh, it's time for us to now move to the project. Let me just talk the project timeline. So I want to show us how these things happen. And then, so let's say this is our project timeline. Okay, well centered now. So for example, what I did here was the project is going to be starting 1st of April. And then the green sign actually signifies our milestone. The orange lines signifies the dependency, which one starts before the other. So don't forget, for this kind of project, I already say whenever you want to start a project, the first question you need to ask yourself is this project going to be agile methodology or waterfall methodology? So for this project, we're actually using waterfall. So that is why everything looks just this way. However, for an agile project, it might not look just this way. Everything is going to be intertwined. So for week 1, set goals and form committee. So we set goals and we form committee. If I expand this project, you see, oh, what are the tasks that will be involved in us setting goal and forming committee? Identify fundraising goal, determine the purpose of fundraiser, establish a fundraising committee, set a timeline, identify and analyze potential risks, develop a budget. Now, all these things are what is going to happen in week 1, which is where we are setting the goal and also where we are forming the committee. So in week 2, what we're doing is we are developing plan and we're identifying donors. So we're developing promotional plan, we're developing plans for volunteer recruitment plan. How do we want volunteers to come on board? So, and then we'll talk about strategies for raising, fundraising plan strategy and the goals. So we'll talk about who are those that we need to obtain license and permits from. The school authority needs to know about it. Are there other people that we need to collect license? Then we'll collect the license from them. Also, we need to identify who are those that can donate for us. So if we need to identify those that would donate, those that would sponsor the project. And sorry. So click on done. That is if the project is completed. Now, all these things are just workshop. On normal things, we ought to do them one after the other for no time. All right, so over to you, Christina. I think I've wasted time though. I really want to say it. All right. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, I thought that it's some issue connections from my side. I was like running here around what's going on. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. We lost some people, but I guess they will, as we are making a recording, they will finish the workshop later. And that would be very useful for them. Also, we have our audience on YouTube, so your workshop will be published there also. I will provide you the link, and you can share it, and our community also would like have some effect. So might be they can connect you on LinkedIn or somewhere else if they have any questions. And actually, I really like the case, what it was. If you had more time, that would be more interesting to work in groups and to have a brainstorm to do it. But sorry for this short time. And I understand that that's absolutely impossible to do it all together at the same time. Yeah. But it's very really useful and helpful for the young project managers who are just starting the career to understand the process itself. And I have one question for you. What was your main challenge when you started your career in project management?
Okay, so for me, I actually studied project management as an undergraduate course. Like I spent 5 years studying project. So the challenge starting the field work in project management is actually when people really ask me a question, do you have experience in another field? In terms of the field, because I studied project management, how do I want to manage construction project management when I did study? So, but then I had to gather my own personal experience just to ensure that I fit into that organization. So the challenge for me was not starting a career in project management, if not starting a career in an other field and being a project manager. So because I studied project management as an undergraduate, an architect wants to do the work of a project manager. Why? Because he feels is best suited for the project. And me that studied project manager feel like, I read this, I can manage this. But then when they ask me a question like, how many blocks do we have to put on another block to make it a wall? I can't answer. So what I did was I had to gather my own experience, gather my own knowledge. And that is one thing I feel like the knowledge areas. If I want to do any project management work, I know that, okay, there is a way to manage sectors, there is a way to manage the cost. And just say because study project management and manage all kinds of projects. No, I have to specifying was just in an area of specialty. But for people out there who wants to go into project management and they are in another field, I would say first just gather enough experience. That would be my own advice. So if you are a civil engineer or an engineer and you want to go into project management, quite easy. Gather enough experience in civil engineering first, and then take some few courses on project management. Best way, attend workshop like IPMA's workshop, and then use that to gather enough experience in project management. So you can volunteer for IPMA's, just do some social goods project or this kind of, just to have project management idea thing. And then get your certification from maybe in PMP or CAPM for starters. For starters, I would say something CAPM. For IPMA, and try working towards IPMA level D, right? So, that is it for those out there, young professionals coming on board. I would say if you are in another field, I'd say, come on, you can do it. Work on your own personal, create your own portfolio. That's by it. But beyond that, understand what project itself. Thank you.
Yeah. When I was starting my career in project management, the main, I think it was the kind of the same, which I had phase 2. And it was like, I know this, but in real, like really, some issues that it doesn't work like it's written. You have to adapt it for every project, for every case, for every time. And it's not like, as you mentioned in your presentation at the beginning, the project is something unique. And the approach when you are starting to manage the projects is always something unique. You know, main procedures, you know what is going one by one. You're doing this, but you always have to create something new. You always have to probate a new approach and to make these things to meet, you know. for the stakeholders, for the process, for the team, for everything. And it's always a challenge. So what I can tell that as a recommendation for everybody who is starting the career in project management, you can be very brilliant in theory, but just don't scare to practice, because every time you need to create new, and when you face to some challenges, that's absolutely normal. Every time you are creating a new project inside your project of managing it. Exactly the same. Okay, I think we can stop here.
Right,
Really,
so
thank you very much.
I actually want to appreciate Christina. Like, thank you so much. Like, especially for this second opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity for us, and I can like mention that your inspiration and how you're fond of project management, that really inspires, and I'm really sure that we can learn a lot from this workshop. Thank you very much, and stay in touch with you. I am in touch with you, so everybody who is going to watch this webinar, you can easily find Yani in LinkedIn and ask any questions you want. Yeah, do you agree? Sorry, it's small advertising your LinkedIn, but maybe somebody can be interested in it.